Susan Lennon here at the SharePoint Saturday, Virginia Beach. And Susan, what's the one thing people need to know about SharePoint 2010?
I've been involved in SharePoint for about 7 or 8 years, and the entire time I've been working on SharePoint, it's been in the Department of Defense military industry. And one of the things that's key in SharePoint for the military is governance. And every time a military environment is deployed and then extended, particularly with custom code, the government entities have to do things like have something that's called an ATO, an authority to operate has to be written. It's a document this big. Some of them, honest to goodness, are acts of Congress. So if they're affecting how the Army deploys in the military zone, we do have those kinds of things in some SharePoint sites. So some things are extremely governed to the point of Congress, not the majority. But needless to say, the government uses a lot of governance. Every time you put a custom piece of code on a server, those accreditation documents have to be rewritten to the ports that they use, the protocols that they use, the risks that are in the executables, the DLLs, etc. There's a huge amount of work that's done in order to send custom solutions to a SharePoint farm. So the huge thing SharePoint 2010 does that makes that much easier is sandbox solutions. So with SharePoint 2010, one of the new things that they've got is the sandbox solution, and when somebody deploys a sandbox solution, which can only be done on a farm where sandbox solutions are enabled, the sandbox solution is still an executable and a DLL, but a site collection administrator has a sandbox solution gallery that they manage. The site collection administrator decides what solutions they want to implement and enable in their farm, and that sandbox solution is not deployed to the web front ends of SharePoint farms.
So they have the ability to go in and test and review it and approve it prior to rolling it out?
Yes, but there's two key things about it, what it does. The number one most important key thing, that solution does not go to the web front end, it is sent into the content database, much like a SharePoint Designer customization workflow is. So you are not going to a farm admin saying, farm admin, please trust me, deploy my code. You don't have to do that. The site collection administrator with no elevated permissions can deploy these solutions, executables. They are stored in the content database. They are not deployed to the web front end servers. Huge, huge in hosted environments, huge in a government area. The sandbox solutions are drastically limited in what they can do compared to a regular farm solution, i.e. you cannot talk to the file system, you cannot talk to back-end databases, you cannot send mail. So there's a lot of things that
takes a lot of the risk out of the development of those and trying those out, right?
So it's the risk is limited already, so that's one thing. And then the second thing they've done is they have different parameters that you can actually throttle and put on top of the sandbox solutions, like how many CPU cycles, how much memory are you going to use? And there's, like, I should know, but I can't remember, but there's a big list, 30-some different types of things that you can assign that sandbox solution cannot go over. If the sandbox solution's poorly written, whatever, and it does go over these resource limits, the sandbox solution stops working in the site collection. The site collection does not go down, the site does not go down. The page, if it's like a web part, that page may not render, but the site continues to work. Plus all the other site collections, all the other web applications, everything else that's being hosted by that web front end, none of those are affected by that poorly written piece of code, potentially. In a governed, tightly governed environment and or a hosted, so this really hits the cloud as well, BPOS or Office 365, you don't have to ask Microsoft or your hoster to host your code in SharePoint 2010. If you're a site collection administrator and that feature is enabled in the farm, you decide as the site collection administrator to run it, and it's your responsibility, and it's stored in the content database, and you have all those things to govern it and manage it. So that gives you a lot of flexibility. You can start writing Silverlight apps, you can do all kinds of graphing and BI things, and do a lot of flash things and hit anything within your site collection. Common things folks want to do, roll up tasks, roll up calendar events, all those kinds of things. Now easy to do with code and not having to go through all the heartache of
Right.
somebody saying, farm administrator, will you run my thing? Governance board, will you allow it to be run, etc.
Right.
You can bypass all that.